Sure.
I'll adjourn the Board of Education closed session and reconvene the Board of Education open session at 7:09. If folks that are watching at home, we're trying a new way of doing our meeting. We are being socially distant and we are in the boardroom. And for the ones who wanted to be in the boardroom and for folks that wanted to be at home because we're still under COVID rules, they are at home. So we're in multiple different places right this minute. We're using one camera in the boardroom. That's what the backdrop is behind me. And so it'll go between the people. Up first is the Pledge of Allegiance. And Mr. Wong, will you please lead us? And if everybody else will be quiet while Brian does it, we don't have all those microphones going at once.
You can please stand. Hand over heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty and justice for all.
Wow.
Probably, possibly the greatest Pledge of Allegiance I've ever heard since Roseanne Barr sang the national anthem. The next is the roll call, and I am assuming that we have everybody in their Zoom spaces. Anybody not here, say aye. Okay. We'll find out who's in as we start calling staff up for reports. We did have a closed session and we took no reportable action. Up next is our order of business, and Dr. Tarosian, is there anything that we need to look at to pull or to move?
Yes, we'll be pulling one item. It will be for action, from consent to action. And this is, excuse me for a minute, I'm looking for the item itself.
Is it item 4?
Yes, right again, Board Member Lockerbie. Item 4, the memorandum of understanding with Streets Are Safe for Everyone. And Dr. Kaiser will present it during her section during the action items under educational services.
Under Ed Services, will it be the first item under Ed Services?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Any other changes?
There are none.
Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the last board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Ms. Huffman, will you please have a vote?
Board Member Gilliland,
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie,
Yes.
Board Member Travanti,
Yes.
Board Member Wong,
Yes.
Board President Hammond.
Abstain.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Board member reports. I didn't ask anybody beforehand. Does anybody have a board report? We'll move on to report from the superintendent.
Thank you. Thank you, Board President Hammond, members of the board. California looks like it is on the verge of having a signed budget. We did have our Sacramento working hard on hammering out some of the language and coming to some agreement. This still needs to be voted upon, but this is these are the agreements, some of the big ticket items that impact education budget. The cuts are far less significant than the May revise. However, there are some greater deferrals, which will impact us in the long run. Our average daily attendance, we will be held harmless, and that too is a source of relief. There is
Would
some
you mind
language.
terribly explaining once again what that means, being held harmless for our ADA?
I'd be delighted. The held harmless means that our attendance is how we are funded. Our students come to school. We are funded by the number of students who come to school. Last year was a year where our students were actually dismissed from school. And so the apportionment of that budget through attendance and the actual physical attendance of students in school would have been very low and would have harmed us in the long run. So we will have our attendance based upon our apportionment or average daily attendance from prior to our school dismissal. And that's what we will be working through. Had it been based on our actual attendance during the school dismissal, or for next year, had it been based upon attendance in a very uncertain time, that too would have made for a very, very unstable budget. In terms of distance learning, we still will have 180 days. This is the minimum school days. And we've got our instructional minutes that we do need to address and make sure that our students are getting solid instruction and that we are working on establishing a solid foundation when our students return to school in August. In the next slide, we've got a couple of other items. The cost of living adjustment is 0. We had expected over 2.29%, I think was the last number. It will be 0. However, when the COLA is under 2%, there is an automatic trigger that allows for layoffs in the summer because most districts have 85% of their budget through people. We are fortunate that they have adjusted for enough things so that we will not need to make any layoffs in the summer for certificated or classified personnel. Classified is in 3 different categories with our food services, our transportation, and our custodial services. In terms of our certificate employees, it is specifically for teachers who can't be laid off. Our other certificated employees certainly can be. And these are layoffs. This is not, employees can still be terminated for cause, of course. In the next slide, we have some of the language in the budget that talks about what next year will look like in terms of distance learning. This is actually tied to the budget, and it includes being in class to the greatest extent possible. The legislature's intent is to permit distance learning and hybrid instruction, but there are some operational and instructional requirements, including a documentation of daily interaction with students, and they go back and identify what that looks like, re-engagement strategies for students who are absent, and access to nutrition services for those students who are not in school on days. They understand that we can't have physical distancing between students and still have 100% of our students on campus. In the next slide, we talk a little bit about the LCAP requirements are waived for 2021, but just as we did this year, next year we will need to adopt a continuity of learning and attendance plan, and that'll be by September. And of course, it's something we're going to have in place in advance because it is going to be our plan for the year. For the purposes of planning, we will need to survey. Now, during the last school year, and we received a survey results from about 25% of our parents, and that gave us a gauge. We need to drill down just a little deeper to find what parents are very interested in terms of the models. And I think in the next slide we have the actual models. 100%, of course, the traditional setting was what we all yearn for, the opportunity to be in class, in school, and teach the way we know how to do best. A hybrid model, which would be some sort of 50% in class with teachers and 40 to 50% perhaps through some independent process. And then, of course, the distance learning. For those students who are medically fragile or because of exposure to COVID-19, or fear of exposure to COVID-19. What we're looking for in terms of our hybrid model, especially at the elementary level, is identifying how to best provide childcare for our parents, for our students. We recognize that that is a need, and I think in the next slide, we talk about preferring who has some preferences. About 20% of the respondents seem to prefer a distance learning, but also in a separate survey question, when we asked, childcare seemed to be a very big factor, and that's especially at the elementary level. So we're trying to harness all of our resources in order to provide what it is parents need, students need, so that we have an instructional model that works. So a little bit about the budget and a little bit about next year. For our vast viewing audience watching at home, please expect a survey in the next week or so, and it will be by student, by school, so that we can take into consideration who needs what. We want to meet the needs of parents. We want to meet the needs of children in the best way we know how. If there are no questions about this, I'd like to go on to the next slide. Yes, Ms. Lockwood.
I have a question about when we're talking about next year and what next year is going to look like. And I know that you're still trying to gather data and get things situated. And I suspect that you don't have an answer for this question yet because of all of the factors that go into it. But I'd be interested in knowing shortly what you think testing is going to look like next year. Testing from third grade, so the SBAC testing, and the testing at the high school level. I don't expect you to have that answer right now. If you do, great. If not, if you can just update us all when you do have that, that would be appreciated.
In terms of testing for SBAC, I'm not sure any decision has been made at the state level for that. But I will say that internally we have talked about the need for regular assessments to gauge learning and to inform instruction. So while SBAC is not the only test, it's certainly the most public of tests, we want to make sure that we are informing our instruction and diagnosing learning as we move through. So there will be some assessments next year and greater accountability for students and kind of a greater focus on the instruction itself. Okay. If there are no other questions, I'll move on to the next slide. And
I'm sorry, Dr. Tarosian, I do have a question. What is your timeline as far as when you will have these plans in place and when you can share the plans with parents for planning purposes? I wouldn't want it to be the week before school starts. So what is your timeline?
Our timeline is mid-July. I hope to bring a plan to the board for approval, but that plan prior to bringing it to the board for approval will be presented to staff and to parents for input and for refinement before the board takes action, so that we know that we've gone through an exhaustive process and an inclusive process. So mid-July.
One question, Dr. Tarosian, is there's a lot of language in this budget and a lot of unknowns, but one known is that there's a huge huge isn't a big enough word for the deferrals that they're proposing. And that's going to cost this district a lot of money in interest. Do you have any idea what the time frame might be for getting this budget out to us and for us to have a time or an opportunity to look at what our borrowing cost might be because of those deferrals? That's going to cost us a lot of money.
It will cost us a lot of money, and that is something that I know Connie and David out of our business services department were working on feverishly. We, based on the May revise, we had planned on needing to borrow up to a couple of $1 million in March of 2021 in order to meet payroll. With the potential deferrals now, we believe that amount that we'll be borrowing will be greater and that we may need to borrow sooner. But as to the specifics, we'll provide you with that information as soon as we have it.
Thank you.
And now, something really far more exciting and powerful, and that is at Clifton Middle School. They will be sharing a performance, their musical performance that we couldn't have in the spring, will be featured this week on Friday and Saturday. The information is on the screen at 7 p.m. and we will post this on our website and share it broadly. We hope you can tune in. Our kids have done a great job, and I'm looking forward to seeing this virtual performance. It honors the work that they've done and the time that they put into it. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions of Dr. Tarosian? Okay. Up next, we have public comments. Ms. Huff, do we have any comments for items that are not on the agenda?
Yes, Board President Hammond, we have 2 comments tonight. Go ahead and read the first one. The first comment comes from Melissa Taylor. Ms. Taylor writes, "Good evening. I wanted to thank everyone who has been so involved with the Black Lives Matter movement in Monrovia. It has been great to see everyone at protests and events. I would also like to personally acknowledge Board Member Lockerbie for her acknowledgement of the local protests in the last meeting. Her acknowledgement of the systemic issues that our Black and Brown community members face resonate with many members in this community. Additionally, I wanted to comment on the proclamation that was read last week denouncing racism. As my daughter is in the Monrovia school system, I am very aware of the lack of diversity in the school system. How does the school board plan on increasing diversity within the school system so that all communities are represented in our schools at all levels? As the school is the largest employer in Monrovia, it seems to me that we could do a lot better in terms of teachers. From the high school to the elementary schools, we need better representation of Black teachers. Thank you, Melissa Taylor."
Thank you.
And there's one more. The next comment comes from Monrovia citizen Terrence G. Williams. "Dear Board of Education, as a longstanding proud resident of Monrovia, who happens to be of African American descent, it behooves me to thank the board for their participation in the peaceful protests concerning Black Lives Matter. In particular, I'd like to acknowledge Board President Hammond for helping to organize the event. I would also like to thank board members who participated in the inaugural Juneteenth celebration. I know the board works very hard to make sure our community is represented in the classroom and the boardroom. Sincerely grateful, Terrence G. Williams."
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Any other comments?
There are none.
Ms. Huff? Okay. Any comments about items on the agenda?
There are none.
Thank you. Hearing and seeing none other, we'll close that and move on with the meeting. We'll move to consent. I just have one question, Dr. Tarosian, on item number 15, Parent Square. what I want to be sure of is that we're diligent in our data entry on that, since if this is approved, it will be the primary communication with our parents. And I want to take care that we've done everything that we can to make sure that the information that we enter is accurate. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I would entertain a motion for consent, please.
So move.
What, don't we have to make the motion with the item?
With the item
pulled?
pulled.
As
Yes, with
amended.
item 4 pulled.
Right, with item 4 is pulled.
Okay. I'll second that then.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Maybe please have a vote.
Board Member Lockerbie,
Yes.
Board Member Travanti,
Yes.
Board Member Wong,
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland,
Yes.
Board President Hammond.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okey-doke. Moving on to action items. Want to make sure. Yes. Up first is item number 4 from consent that was moved. Dr. Kaiser, can you get the staff report, please?
Absolutely. Good evening, Board President Hammond and Board. Tonight we have an item. It's a memorandum of understanding with Streets Are Safe for Everyone. The Board of Education is requested to approve a memorandum of understanding with Streets Are Safe for Everyone to provide student internship opportunities to MUSD high school students as part of our work-based learning program. And this is connected to our Pathways work and the work that Monrovia has diligently done in our career technical education and our work-based learning opportunities for students. So in the spirit of partnership and cooperation to promote improving career technical education for the benefit of students enrolled in the academies and to benefit the community at large by providing more skilled workers, the MOU is being presented for approval. Students participating as interns in Streets Are Safe for Everyone will be provided with work-based learning as an internship in this program. There is no cost to the district, and all of the appropriate insurances have been vetted.
Any questions of Dr. Kaiser? No questions? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Maybe please have the vote.
Board Member Travanti,
Yes.
Board Member Wong,
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland. I'm sorry, Board Member Gilliland.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Board Member Lockerbie,
Yes.
Board President Hammond.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Up next, we have the purchase of Spyder Labs, and Dr. Kaiser will give the staff report.
I'm sorry, President Hammond,
Yes.
is anyone else hearing background noise?
Yes, I can now.
Yes.
Can we just ask that if you're not speaking, you can mute your audio so we can all hear everything?
I don't hear it anymore. No, it's still there. I think it's Sue.
I think it's coming from Dr.
Sorry.
You know, it's not Maritza this time.
I'm not making any noise.
We're going to vote that it's you, Sue, so go ahead.
Okay, all right.
Okay, Sue, go ahead and see what we'll work it through.
Okay, the Board of Education is requested to approve the purchase of the Spyder Lab Epilot Fusion Pro equipment for the CTE pathway and student-run business. We're very excited about this purchase. This purchase is being made with our CTE money, the grant money that the district was granted for the career technical education through the partnership that we have with the Foothill Consortium. And the purchase of this lab, it's actually a laser engraver that completes the high school Spyder lab for our CTE students. The lab allows students to develop skills and entrepreneurship as they learn how to program the equipment to create customized apparel, etched photos, customized awards, plaques, and promotional materials and prototypes, and 3D models, banners, stickers, and vinyl wrap products. Students will learn how to develop these skills into businesses that will serve the Monrovia High School and larger community. So the materials that the students create will actually be able to be sold to buy more raw materials to create more items. And so that they'll actually have their own little business at the high school. More importantly, the lab provides students with career skills and self-esteem that will change the trajectory of their education, careers, and livelihood. As you will see in the Spyder Lab video that we'll show you in just a moment, the lab creates a learning environment that is engaging, welcoming, innovative, and prepares students for careers that are identified for future growth by current labor market data. Our partnership with Spyder Labs includes training and consulting to promote hands-on career exploration in programming, business, manufacturing, and design. The students in the Spyder Lab will truly engage in collaboration, communication, creativity, critical thinking, leadership, business accounting, and marketing to design and prepare them for success beyond high school. And so with that, we would like to lift the words off the page and show you a little video of what this lab will do. This little video is 3 minutes long.
Okay, I apologize if the audio doesn't come through. Hold on 1 second for me.
So I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea of what this equipment will be able to do for our students in this lab and in terms of them setting up a little micro business.
Looks pretty cool.
A little bit different than print shop when I was in school.
A little bit.
Right.
Any questions of Sue?
I have a question. As part of this CTE grant, is there part of that grant that's allocated for materials? Because it's great to have the machinery, the new equipment, but we have to also have some money set aside for the materials needed for these classes.
Yes, what will happen is there's seed money from the grant that will buy the initial installment of the materials because there is cost with the raw materials. Then as students have orders for t-shirts or laser cut wooden products, as they get the orders to do some of that work, those things will be sold so that they can have a cycling of funds to continue to buy the materials. And there also will be some profit that goes into that.
Thank you.
I just want to take a minute to give some kudos to all those people that are involved with the upgrade of our career technical program. Getting grant money and finding opportunities like this one to really bring state-of-the-art career technology to our students and giving them career paths that a lot of students don't have access to. So good job once again, Monrovia staff.
And I want to echo what Ed said and also thank you for this information to us. I know some people have said, whatever happened to vocational tech? Well, it's still here. It's just the name has changed a little bit. And the pathways have changed and the careers have changed. And you know, we're keeping up with the future. We're ahead. And I'm very appreciative, and I thank you so much for sharing what this, what CTE is and where it's going, and how we're continuing to improve things for our students.
Any other comments? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Huff, let me have a vote, please.
Board Member Wong,
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland,
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie,
Yes.
Board Member Travanti,
Yes.
Board President Hammond.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Up next, a new course offering, and Dr. Kaiser.
Yes, this is along the same lines as the career technical education. This is this item, the Board of Education has requested to approve career life planning as a new course offering for high school students. And this will be part of our early college program, helping students to dream of those careers that they want to have, and then to learn the building blocks that it takes to get there. So as part of our early college program and in keeping with our LCAP goal 1.6, we're increasing access to higher level courses to increase the number of students who successfully enter and complete high school at both college and career ready, and increase access for students to honors and AP level classes. This career life planning course is being presented for approval. Through personal exploration, occupational research, and the study of contemporary work issues, students will increase their understanding of the relationship of individuals to the economic community and develop individual career plans. This course does meet CSU general education requirements in the area of lifelong learning and self-development. And we're very excited about this particular course being layered into our early college program.
Any questions of Sue? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Ms. Huff, let me please have a vote.
Board Member Gilliland,
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie,
Yes.
Board Member Travanti,
Yes.
Board Member Wong,
Yes.
Board President Hammond.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Next, in the Dr. Sue Kaiser Show, public review of a recommended textbook.
Yes, the Board of Education is requested to accept for public review prior to adoption the textbook, The Career Fitness Program by Pearson for the early college course, Career Life Planning. So this is the book that will go with the course that was just approved.
One question, Sue, usually the book sits in the foyer at the district office. How would somebody review that textbook given the strange situation that we find ourselves in now?
Gee whiz, we can still put it in the district office. We can put a copy in the district office. And then people could, come by appointment. And there are folks in the district office now. We're back in the office. There's a doorbell that can be rung and somebody can come and have them look through it at the desk there. So that is one way of seeing the book. I did not think of this. I will check to see if we can get a link to an online version for people to look at online. I don't know if that will be possible, but I will check and then we can get that information out. The best thought that we have right now is that people could come and ring the doorbell and we can have somebody let them in to see the book.
Okay, and is there some thought on how to disinfect the book after the public touches it?
I believe that the best thing to do is to have a box of gloves by the book and people would put the gloves on, look at the book with gloves on, and then dispose of the gloves.
And a
Okay.
mask, gloves and a mask.
Right. Yeah, to enter the building, they need a mask.
Okay.
But I believe that gloves would create that barrier that we need.
Okay. Any other questions of Dr. Kaiser? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
There's motion and a second. Motion and guys, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? May we please have a vote?
Board Member Lockerbie,
Yes.
Board Member Travanti,
Yes.
Board Member Wong,
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland,
Yes.
Board President Hammond.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
And I assume if there's no comment, that'll come back on consent.
Consent. Up next, the memorandum of understanding with Coatson. Dr. Kaiser.
Yes, the Board of Education is requested to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Coatson Foundation for the Art of Teaching and Monrovia Unified School District and Mayflower Elementary School from July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2022. Mayflower will be the 5th school in our district that will have the opportunity to work with the Coatson Foundation, who funds professional development in a grand way, hundreds of thousands of dollars for each of our schools. As part of the Monrovia Unified School District goal to promote professional learning, the Coatson Foundation for the Art of Teaching has selected Mayflower Elementary School to participate in this 2-year program. The program is funded for 2 years, and the purpose of this grant is to transform good teachers into great teachers. The transformation occurs through a program in which proven educators receive coaching and mentoring to achieve the highest levels of teaching excellence. The grant provides Monrovia Unified School District with the funds to cover 2 years of a full-time salary and cost of benefits for one selected mentor from Mayflower Elementary School, which includes such as paid items such as paid sick leave, holidays, and other authorized absences which fall in the period of the mentor's participation under the agreement. The teachers also receive up to 13 days of paid time off a year. The mentor will be assigned to work with 5 teachers at the school site. The foundation will reimburse the Monrovia Unified School District for up to 5 substitute days for each of these teachers that are the teachers that will be learning with the mentor. The grant also provides $1,000 per school year for each of these teachers that are in the learning mode, and the mentor to cover out-of-pocket expenses for the classroom, materials, professional books, and conference expenses directly related to the program. Mayflower being the 5th school, we know that this is a tried and true process for our teachers. And we have been the wonderful, lucky recipients of having this program in our other 4 elementary schools. And so Mayflower is the 5th one. We're very happy to be able to work with Coatson with Mayflower.
Any questions of Sue?
Yes, Dr. Kaiser, in light of the changes that we will be required to make to even have school this fall and next year, have we looked at all with Coatson how that may change this program and the effectiveness of it? I mean, I hate to have the program for 2020 and 2021, 2022, and lose part of the effectiveness of one of those years, because this is a wonderful program. And so I just wondered if we've had a chance to look at that and assure ourselves in Coatson that this is the best time to be doing this. We lost you, Doctor.
There I am. I've been speaking with the executive director of Coatson, and they're moving quite gracefully into the digital age with the digital teaching. And so the mentors will be trained on how to mentor teachers while they're doing remote learning. And as we're looking at doing a blended return back to school, that time in the classroom, the mentors will be working with them in the classrooms, but also when they're teaching digitally, they can go in and see how the teachers are conducting small group reading, small group instruction, how they're conducting their writing lessons, and the feedback is given then. A big thing that has happened with the funding that the teachers receive, many of our teachers have flown to New York City, and they have attended Columbia University for a week in the summers. And all of that has been paid for by Coatson. And they've learned from Lucy Calkins, who's a master at these processes. This summer, the teachers from Plymouth were planning to go to New York, and you can imagine that they're very disappointed. However, I've spoken with the teachers from Plymouth, and the teachers that are called fellows are all going to be doing a full week of online learning with Columbia University, the Teachers College, this summer, and they're very excited about it. So the funds are paying for their tuition for that week, and the learning is continuing. And so we are working very closely with the foundation, and they are certain that, you know, during this time that teachers do need additional support. The pedagogy and the work that's happening, it's special work, and it's difficult work. And this will give them that added support, and they'll be able to rise above the situation. And then lessons learned by these excellent teachers will be able to be shared with others in the school site. So in answer to your question, yes. The other thing to realize about these schools, once a school becomes a Coatson school for the 2 years, they are actually a Coatson school for life. They no longer have the mentor, but there are other processes that the schools engage in. Both Plymouth and Brad Oaks are entering into a situation with Coatson where the principals have been selected as technology learners, and they will be they've been selected to work. There are 14 principals in Southern California that have been selected, and 2 of them are from our district. And that's one example of how Coatson, once they select a school, they're committed to those teachers and those schools for the rest of their teaching careers. And so it's not just a 2-year program. It really goes far beyond that.
Great.
The,
Thank you.
the teachers are being taught
Mhm.
new pedagogy based on best practices. There continues to develop so new ways of teaching based on new standards. If new standards are coming in, is that what that is?
Yes, they're perfecting their craft. Teachers are never done learning. None of us are. And this is an opportunity for them to continue to perfect their craft.
Okay, so they're not teaching the Coatson way of teaching. They're teaching the broadest vision of how to be better teachers, correct?
Actually, they're following the pedagogy of Lucy Calkins, who is a professor at Columbia Teachers College. And she has been writing books and doing this work for many years in the area of reading and writing workshops. So it's a specific process within the school. And so they learn her methodology for this work. And it's very deep work. It's very scientific work. It's very careful work. And then in the area of math, they use a process called cognitively guided instruction, which is it's all standards based, but it's how the work is presented to the students in terms of thinking mathematically. And the reading and writing, it's all standards based, but it's increasing those critical thinking skills and the writing skills, those areas where we want children to be developing.
You said
I just have one, I'm sorry, Celine, go ahead.
sorry. You said once a Coatson school, always a Coatson school. I want to make sure I understand what that means in terms of if they're designated as a Coatson school, does that mean that they can't have affiliations with anybody else or grants with anybody else or anything?
Oh, no. Yeah, no. It means that the Coatson Foundation, which has the funding to fund programs for schools, for elementary schools, that these schools can continue to write to the foundation yearly for grants. And so that can happen for the duration of the rest of the time that school and the foundation are in existence. And our schools have taken advantage of those grants through parent education, the technology principal group that our 2 principals have been invited into. There are many professional activities that happen through Coatson in a broad sense, and they're always looking at the very best practices. And they use schools that are doing things exceptionally well as model schools for us to go and take a look to see what they're doing to expedite our work and to make it faster for us to figure out when you see somebody who's already got something wired. And they've been very impressed with Plymouth and the parent engagement at Plymouth, and they have invited the principal and 5 teachers. This summer, they were supposed to be going to Harvard University for a week to learn about parent engagement, and they are being used as a West Coast model for Coatson to develop parent engagement. And so these are some of the opportunities that are residual after the 2-year mentoring program that is the kickoff for the school.
Any other comments? I just have one, and I would encourage all board members who have an interest to watch the Coatson platform at work to talk to Dr. Kaiser so that you can see it work. I would like to give you a snippet of what I was able to participate in as a visual, watching it visually, not participating in it as any capacity. I was at Plymouth last year when we were all in school. And the teachers, it was the day that the mentor was on the campus. The students, there were a number of students that came into the classroom and they were going to be doing an exercise. And it was the job of the teachers that day to look and watch what the students were doing and then write down what they perceived what the students were doing. And the students were given very little instruction. It was read this book or this paper and write down what you think it means, kind of like a mini book report. And then the teachers were to write down what they saw the students doing. To me, it was very interesting how 20 people in a classroom will see 20 different things. And what the coach and the lesson that day was to take into account that each one of your students that comes into your classroom different than every other student there. So when you had a preconceived notion of, I need you to read page 1 of this book and write a report, that your notion of reading that paragraph and writing it may be completely different to what that student is not only hears from you, but is capable of producing for you. It was very interesting to watch this because for me, it was an eye opener. And I would encourage anybody on the board who wants to go view this. Not only are we getting our money's worth because they're giving us the money, we are incredibly lucky that they have chosen all of our elementary schools to get this amount of work. I was watching the teachers learn, and when I spoke to them afterwards, they were truly enlightened. And these are long-term professional teachers that they're learning something new, and it was tremendous. So if you get a chance to do that, I am sold on the Coatson platform. I think it does nothing but help out our students because it helps out our teachers who are the ones that we're in charging to help our students. And with that, I will step back from my platform and I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Maybe please have a vote.
Board Member Travanti,
Yes.
Board Member Wong,
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland,
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie. You're muted, Celine.
Yes.
Board President Hammond,
Yes,
motion carries 5-0.
thank you very much. Up next is Business Services, Connie Wu.
Good evening, Board President, Mr. Hammond, Board of Education, Superintendent Dr. Torosian, Cabinet, and community members. The Business Service Department would like the board approve the resolution regarding the education protection account. This account was established by states as a result of the state passed the Proposition 30, which is increase the California high earner their individual income tax. And the Proposition 30 was extended by Proposition 55, which voters passed back to November 26, extended this high individual income tax rate to 2030. The district estimated that in 2021 school year, we will receive from the education protection account funding about $6.4 million. However, this is not additional money the district will receive from state. Basically, state $1 by dollar reduce the local control funding formula. The spending of this money, there's a restriction. The district could not spend the education protection account for the administrative salary and benefit.
Any questions of Ms. Wu? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Is it too late for me to ask a question?
is perfect time for you to ask a question.
Is this the stimulus money that we got, the $900,000?
No, this is not. This is actually, this resolution is the annual routine resolution. And because the education protection account was established back 2012 when the voter approved the population studies. So the stimulus money is a separate funding, and we're anticipated to receive around 910,000, and the district already submitted applications.
Celine, did that answer your question?
Sort of. Yes, it answered my question.
Okay.
This is about the same amount of money as the stimulus that we got, that we have to spend before December. Is that correct? Or I think I'm confusing.
Okay, so let me repeat it. The education protection money, the district anticipated is around the $6.4 million. So the money is because this is part of the revenue, because the state reduced LCFF in the certain specific school year. So the funding spend, there's no deadline as far as the district spend within a year.
Okay.
And we are allowed to carry over. So it's treated as a general fund.
Okay.
Any other questions? And Celine, you got it okay?
Yes, I'm just switching back from screen to screen. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Huff, maybe please have a vote.
Board Member Wong,
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland,
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie,
Yes.
Board Member Travanti,
Yes.
Board President Hammond.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Up next, Ms. Wu, is a resolution to authorize temporary interfund cash borrowing.
Yeah. Yes, again, the district is required that maintain a positive cash balance at all the time for the all district fund. However, as the board know that the district various fund, they will receive the funding from state from various resources and according to the different schedules. However, our responsibility to pay our employees the salary and benefit, pay our operation costs such as utility, had to be made on a monthly basis. So in order to make sure that all our funds have a positive funding balance, we will require the board to approve the resolution, so that authorizes the business service department to transfer fund in case that at a certain time, certain fund have a short of cash, so that we will make sure that the district meets the requirement that all the fund will keep at the positive funding balance.
Any questions of Connie? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Huff, can we have a vote?
Board Member Gilliland,
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie,
Yes.
Board Member Travanti,
Yes.
Board Member Wong,
Yes.
Board President Hammond.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Up next is a resolution to authorize temporary transfers. Ms. Wu.
Yes, this is actually another option. And after the district absorb the first option and board internally, so that make our district order fund keep the positive funding balance. In case that we still need to borrow money, the county gave us this option to borrow from the Los Angeles County Treasurer. And this also allows us temporary borrowing to solve the cash shortage, although we have not used this option, but this option is still available.
Any comments?
I'll make one comment, and that's, we haven't had to use this. We approve the authority every year. But based upon the legislature and governor's latest agreement and the amount of money they're going to defer this year, which means we'll pay you gladly next Tuesday for a hamburger today, to quote an old cartoon. So they won't give us the money when we're supposed to get it. They'll give it to us sometime down in the future. And because of the huge amount I expect this year, this is going to be extremely important. And we're able to borrow money at a very reasonable rate and make it through from a cash flow standpoint until the state gives us the money they owe us.
I think there's 5 board members, instead of saying it 5 times, I think there's 5 board members that are in full agreement with you, Ed.
I think so.
These are going to be very, very trying times coming ahead, and we need to position ourselves so that the folks who work for this district will not have to needlessly suffer not being paid for the job that they did. And we're putting ourselves in a position right now to make sure that we can pay our bills, even if we don't receive the money on time to pay our bills.
Yeah, these last 2 resolutions are so we can manage our funds better before we have to. The first one is basically if you had, for the people at home, if you had a checking and savings account, you'd be able to transfer between your accounts without creating any problems. This one is if both your checking and savings account are at 0, that you've already got your home loan in place in which you can tap into it. So this is basically us putting our home loan agreement in place. We haven't borrowed anything against it, but in the case that we do have to at a point in time in the future, we're ready to go. And this is a cash flow issue. So it's not that we are overspending or spending money that we overspending against a budget. These are monies that we have budgeted, that we have revenue that will be attached to it, but the cash flow isn't there, meaning that we're going to get an IOU from the state versus actual dollars. Now, hopefully we'll never need this. This is something we do every year as an emergency backup, although this particular year is looking more probable that we are going to have to tap into this. And when we do, there will be many discussions before that happens, depending on what the severity is. So the business office at this point in time is being prudent to make sure that we won't have any disruptions for any of our staff members.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. You actually said quite a few things that were going through my mind, because for those in the public that are watching are probably surprised to hear that we have to borrow because of cash flow issues. But that, again, just to reiterate, it's not because of mismanagement here within the district. It's because the IOU potential from the state and that money not coming through in a timely fashion. So thanks.
Any other comments? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Hupp, may we please have a vote?
Board Member Lockerbie,
Yes.
Board Member Travanti,
Yes.
Board Member Wong,
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland,
Yes.
Board President Hammond.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Our next person is going to get the staff report just exited the room, so I'm going to have to wait just a minute. The interlude will be playing some happy music, waiting for our staff member to come back in.
Actually, President Hammond, he is standing by and
Oh,
prepared.
now I'm making an
He needs to
appearance.
prevent.
Yeah, I make an appearance on Zoom. Charles Pavakin, will you please give us a report on the approval of Centalone endpoint? Oh, you're on mute, Charles. Charles, we cannot hear you.
Always like when a tech guy has problems.
Yeah.
I feel so bad.
Kathy, if you could text Charles and tell him he's on mute.
Oh, he's just not talking.
I mean, you can't hear.
Maybe he's not plugged in.
We have Charles on the go now.
He recognizes there's a problem. I can see that. You know what, Charles, why don't you just present from the boardroom from the dais,
podium.
from the podium? Yeah, it's probably the easiest. We won't get to see your face, but at least we'll hear you.
Oh, no, we got a face. We got it on the computer. We're working
You
here.
gotta move it.
Okay,
Okay.
so the Board of Education is requested to approve the purchase and licensing of 701 Endpoint Detection and Response, also known as EDR, for a 3-year term for a cost of $14,985 annually. And EDR is basically a cybersecurity software. Think of it as antivirus, but taken it a step further. Instead of scanning a file and seeing if it's in a database, so a known database, it takes it a step farther and actually looks at behavior. Is an application trying to send out a flood of traffic. So think of it as a bouncer. You have a good ID, you're in, but if you cause havoc after that, there's no security guards to maintain control. So that's what EDR is. It is a security guards that's looking at the behavior of the computers and the applications to try to stop malware and ransomware day zero. It's called day zero type protection. So we vetted many different software and we find that this is the best fit for our district and we'd like the board to approve it today so that we can start installation over the summer.
Any questions of Charles? Celine?
So I have a question. So this is cybersecurity at what level? For example, we had a breach with Aries a few months ago. Does that stop that? Because we have Aries and all of these programs, Google Classroom and Parent Square and all of these things that we use that we need that are our tools. Is that going to protect an invasion through places like that?
It would not protect things that are cloud-based because those rely on their own protection. It's going to be protecting our servers, which has a lot of our files, like our purchasing software, a lot of the files that the business services use. It's also going to protect all our computers, our PCs and Mac that we have here. So think of it as software that is going to prevent maybe somebody from trying to capture your username and password, which they could use to possibly get into Aries or Google. So indirectly, it does protect them, but the most direct type of protection is really to protect our network, our
So it's
servers
physical
in-house,
business
and
network
our
and
computers.
the district office.
District office and all the school sites, correct.
What did we have before?
What did we have before? We're using right now Microsoft. It's a free antivirus solution, but it also only protects our Windows machine. We haven't really been protecting our Macs. There's a belief for many years that because they're not targeted as well, to leave this unprotected. But I can tell you, like in talking to districts like Claremont that was recently breached, they wish that they had protected their Macs. So more folks are targeting Macs now.
Can we use, Brian, what are the funds that I always forget the name of?
The E-rate funds?
Yeah, can we use E-rate money for this?
E-rate money, unfortunately, does not pay for antivirus software. E-rate is really intended for communications, such as wireless and internet connectivity.
Those are all my questions. Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you. Any other questions of Charles? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Huff, will we please have a vote?
Board Member Travanti,
Yes.
Board Member Wong,
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland,
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie,
Yes.
Board President Hammond.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Up next, we have Dr. Tarosian and the agreement between Monrovia Unified School District and the California Emerging Technology Fund.
Thank you, President Hammond, members of the board. The Board of Education is requested to approve an agreement between us and the California Emerging Technology Fund to provide free Chromebooks to Monrovia Unified School students. Recently, CETF reached out to us with an opportunity to provide Chromebooks to low-income students. The donation of Chromebooks is their response to the current pandemic and would help lay the foundation to pivot to the future, as they say. It provides the necessary tools to the students who need it, and the Chromebooks would belong to the students and not to the district. We would simply serve as that conduit to help identify the students.
Any questions of Dr. Tarosian? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Maybe please have a vote.
I have a question.
Okay, we'll go back.
And perhaps it might go to Charles, because we had, we were short several 100,000 Chromebooks. Does this help? Does this help that? This has got to help that, right? What was the number before, and what is the number now, or what will the number be?
This will provide probably 100 Chromebooks, much needed, but it will of course help shore up that gap, but it will certainly not bridge it entirely.
Okay. So the gap was about 1,100. Was that correct? At 1,100 Chromebooks that were short.
I defer to Mr. Pravakin.
Yeah, the gap is almost 1,500. We have a little bit over 40, I believe 4,200 Chromebooks. And
Okay.
some of them are or pretty close to expiring. When you include those that are expiring, it's actually more than that.
But this is great. This is a wonderful.
Any further questions? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Ms. Huff, maybe have the vote.
Board Member Wong,
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland,
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie,
Yes.
Board Member Travanti,
Yes.
Board President Hammond.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Up next, we have a resolution denouncing racism and discriminatory acts. This is an item that was carried over from the previous meeting, and I would like to thank the folks on the board and our staff for making a document that the board is proud of, that the district is proud of, and that we can all stand behind. And it took the collective effort of a lot of people to make sure that the proper words were used to convey the message that we want to convey. And I'd like to thank Dr. Tarosian, who spent a lot of hours making sure that this document that will be a living document for this district for years to come is something that can be relevant not only today, but be relevant for years to come. And I'll ask Dr. Tarosian to please read the resolution.
Certainly, President Board. Whereas the Monrovia Unified School District is committed to providing all students with a world-class education, And whereas a world-class education requires an understanding and appreciation for all people in our world, and whereas educational institutions remain the bedrock of every democracy, and whereas an educated and informed citizenry embraces the diversity within this country, and whereas a history chronicles events during which mankind committed unspeakable horrors upon their fellow man, including slavery and the slave trade, creating in our nation historically disparate treatment of African Americans that continues to the present day. And whereas the extrajudicial killing of Black people in this country has deep roots in the dehumanizing system of white supremacy that once defined Black bodies as property and persisted in the form of lynchings during the 100 years of Jim Crow. And whereas we, as educators, concur with W.E.B. Du Bois, the teachers of Black youth must believe in them. They must have faith in them and their community. They must trust them and encourage them and defend them. The killing of George Floyd and countless unarmed Black men and women across our nation has sparked a movement and left young people in Monrovia searching for answers to incredibly complicated questions. And whereas our schools and classrooms must be safe spaces for dialogue and support on the issues raised by this movement and the efforts to reverse the school-to-prison pipeline. And whereas one of the most effective ways to reverse their progression of racism that results in violence and finally genocide is the cultivation of a robust democracy, which inherently protects against the targeting of and aggression against people based on ethnicity, color, gender identity or expression, faith, immigration status, mental or physical disability, or any other trait. And whereas children who participate in high-quality preschool programs have better health, social, emotional, and cognitive outcomes than those who do not participate. And whereas there continue to be inequities in education for Black children who go to school without the benefits of preschool learning, thereby beginning their education at a disadvantage. And whereas schools should serve as foundations upon which practices in equity are established and where all students realize their promise and where differences are not only accepted but valued. Now, therefore, be it resolved that in furthering its commitment to a healthy democracy, the governing board of the Monrovia Unified School District voices its opposition to all forms of racism, discriminatory actions, and the incitement of violence, and commits to pursuing racial and implicit bias training. Be it further resolved that the governing board of the Monrovia Unified School District affirms its commitment to the well-being and safety of Black students and community members by speaking out against acts of bigotry. Be it further resolved that the governing board of the Monrovia Unified School District will advocate for the establishment of universal access to quality preschool. Be it further resolved that the governing board of the Monrovia Unified School District affirms its commitment to the teaching of tolerance, understanding, and the appreciation of the diversity in our schools and community.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I have a comment, if I could. I would have given this out in board reports, but I thought it would be appropriate to follow this resolution. Last week, I listened in on a webinar held for secondary school students here in California titled Institutional Racism and Implicit Bias. It was opened by the state superintendent, Tony Thurman, and turned over to a student moderator who introduced the panel of speakers who were all high school students with varied backgrounds, but most were African American. The moderator would pose the questions and members of the speaker panels would have opportunities to answer with personal experiences and suggestions on how schools could do better. One repeated message was, I'm Black, but I don't learn about Black history in schools. None of my peers know anything about Black history or their contributions. There were stories of racism in the classroom and in their communities. I was so impressed with these young people who were so brave to share. I was there to listen, learn, and grow. I sat there and read all the comments coming through in the chat box and kept thinking to myself, we can do better. We can do a lot better. It's about change. It's about also being aware. You might say something you didn't mean to be racist, but it can be construed that way, and we need to be sensitive. Not only do we need to change our own ways, but we need to be anti-racist and support changing U.S. history curriculum to reflect the truth about history, which includes Black history. The role of Black soldiers played in wars, all wars, and that we need to come from the state, it needs to come from the state level so the curriculum is consistent and required by all districts. In addition, as stated in the resolution, we are holding our own district accountable by committing to pursuing racial and implicit bias training for all staff members and students, and it should be on an annual basis. I learned a lot from that call, and I'm committed to learning more. Thank you.
Any further comments?
I have a comment.
Ms. Huff? Yes.
Dr. Therosian. I want to take this opportunity to thank you. Before the last board meeting, you were dealing with altered graduation ceremonies and COVID and everything, but you took time out to write this resolution. And you took the time again to rewrite it. And when I spoke with you about this during the week, you said, I want this to be perfect. And of course, if things were perfect, we wouldn't be talking about this. But I hear your heart that beats for social justice. And I feel your heart that breaks for the inhumanities that are suffered in this world. And I want to thank you for writing this, and I want to thank you for rewriting this, and want to thank you for your support, the support that you give in this district for everybody. So I thank you for allowing me to ask for a resolution to have teeth. I've been told several times over the past few weeks that generally resolutions don't have teeth. They're just a mission statement. They talk about what an organization believes in. And I appreciate you and the rest of the board putting teeth into a resolution that isn't normally the case. And I appreciate the board and you being willing to do things differently because they need to be done. And I appreciate everything that you've done to write this beautiful resolution. And I really thank you from the bottom of my heart for this, because it means a lot to me.
It's a privilege to have been able to do so, Celine. It's the right thing to do.
Any further comments? I'd like to say thanks a lot too. It is the right thing to do. Ms. Huff, may we have a vote, please?
Board Member Lockerbie,
Yes.
Board Member Travanti,
Yes.
Board Member Wong,
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland,
Yes.
Board President Hammond.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Up next, we have pending board issues. Dr. Therosian.
President Hammond, members of the board, you'll notice that the pending board issues is a very slim document. Expect more next month when we meet again. There's nothing new on this, but the cycling reports will be continuing and we will come back. The advocacy, which this board participated in trying to salvage the California budget in terms of education certainly bore some fruit, and the devastation that we were looking at for next year seems to have dissipated just a little. There's still going to be difficult times, but I think it could have been much worse. So the constant board advocacy certainly makes a difference.
Our next regularly scheduled board meeting will be here, wherever we are at that time. Some boardroom, some home, as we are snuggling into this routine on Wednesday, July the 22nd. Summer school will start Friday for classes that will give a boost at the high school level to students. I'm sorry, it's today. My days are messed up. But we'll be having K through 8 summer school starting on July 6th through the 31st, and high school July the 11th through the 15th. I'd also like to thank our staff. This is something that the board brought forward some time ago, and we've kind of like been on like a dog on a bone on it, is to get summer school not only for credit recovery, but for students who wanted to have enrichment and get ahead. And while we're not exactly in the optimum environment, which would have been the classroom, we are offering enrichment summer school. And I'd like to thank our staff and our teachers in particular, because not only are the folks there all year round, through the school year, some of them signed up for these enrichment programs too. It is going to be very, very beneficial for our students, particularly this year, as we went through the bump we went through for the second semester. So thank you to everybody. If anybody has any questions about things that are going to be going on in the school district, I would encourage you to please look at our website, www.monroviaschools.net. We will have all the information that is available and current with respect to what's going to be happening in the fall, what will be happening over the summer, and things like that. Recognizing that we are just a very small cog in the wheel in the state, and we are responding to almost daily changes as the information comes down to us. I'm sorry that at this particular time, I cannot tell you with anything that's sure what it will look like in the fall, but please look for that information as we will be making a decision in July for what the fall will look like. It will also be posted. And if anybody has any questions, I encourage you to please ask those questions. We'll give you the best answer that we can. And if there's no further business